Brilliance Audio presents Shadow Strike, Inside Israel's Secret Mission to Eliminate Syrian Nuclear Power, by Yaakov Katz, performed by Christopher Lane. In the middle of April 2007, a short, bald, and burly man with a limp and a cane walked into the West Wing of the White House. He carried a small briefcase with a few folders chaotically jutting out. The man showed his diplomatic passport at the entrance. He was under the impression that he would be brought directly to the Oval Office for a private meeting with the President, but instead the guards were under orders to keep his name off the official visitor logs and to clandestinely escort him to the office of National Security Advisor Stephen Hadley. Inside, two other men were waiting, Hadley's deputy, Elliot Abrams, and a surprise guest, the Vice President of the United States, Dick Cheney. The man the trio had gathered to meet was Meir Dagan, the renowned and feared head of the Mossad, Israel's legendary foreign spy agency and the equivalent of the CIA. A few days earlier, Prime Minister Ehud Olmert had called President George W. Bush and told him that Dagan would be coming to Washington with some important information. "I'd appreciate if you could meet him," Olmert told Bush. The request, phrased in a way that seemed urgent, took Bush and his staff by surprise. Heads of state, even close allies like Olmert, don't usually ask the president to meet the directors of their intelligence agencies alone. If they ever do meet them, it is almost always according to diplomatic protocol and in the presence of the foreign leader. So the president's aides decided to stick to protocol. They would first meet Dagan, evaluate whatever information he was bringing with him, and, if needed, take him to see the president. Cheney was briefed about the pending visit and decided to sit in on the meeting. He knew Dagan and figured that, based on Olmert's special request, it must be urgent. Dagan took a seat on the couch. Cheney settled into a large blue wing chair to his right. Not one for small talk, Dagan got straight to the point. "Syria is building a nuclear reactor," the Mossad chief said in his thick Israeli accent. "For Syria to have a nuclear weapons program, to have a nuclear weapon, is unacceptable." Dagan then pulled the first folder out of his bag and spread a number of color photos on the coffee table. Cheney lifted one. Hadley and Abrams took another. They could clearly make out a concrete building under construction with some large pipes being installed inside. There was nothing yet that showed the building to be a nuclear reactor. It didn't have the typical dome or smokestacks, the trademarks of nuclear facilities. "That is the nuclear reactor," Dagan told the group. It was a gas-cooled, graphite-moderated reactor, he explained, used to produce plutonium, and was being built as an almost exact replica of the Yongbyon nuclear reactor in North Korea. The concrete building on the exterior was a facade, being built to hide what was really happening inside. The Americans were speechless. There were dozens of photos. Cheney, Hadley, and Abrams just watched and listened as Dagan pulled out one after another and explained in detail what they were. One of the photographs looked too good to be true. It showed two men posing in front of the concrete structure. One of the men, of Asian ethnicity, was wearing a blue tracksuit. The man he was standing next to, Dagan said, was Ibrahim Othman, head of Syria's Atomic Energy Commission. Dagan then showed his hosts another photo. It was the same Asian man, although this time he wasn't wearing workout clothes but a tailored suit and black tie. From their intelligence experience, the Americans knew what they were looking at. It was a photo taken at a recent meeting of the six-party talks, the negotiations America and other Western superpowers were conducting with North Korea in an effort to stop its rogue nuclear program. The man in the photo, Dagan said, was Chon Chi-bu, one of the scientists in charge of the Yongbyon nuclear reactor. The news was earth-shattering. Until then, there was no evidence in the U.S. intelligence community to support what Dagan was claiming. None. Everyone knew about North Korea's nuclear ambitions. The hermit country had tested its first nuclear weapon just a few months earlier, in October 2006, but there was nothing to even hint that Pyongyang was proliferating its technology and helping Syria build a nuclear weapon. It wasn't just shocking. It was a strategic nightmare of worldwide proportions.